At dinner, my uncle said I was just lonely and rich. Everyone laughed. I excused myself from the table, drove straight to the airport, and what happened next silenced them all. We were 12 around the table, my family, if you can even call it that. Dad was already on his second glass of Bordeaux. Rachel's boyfriend was raving about the truffle risotto. My sister was live streaming the decor. Mom had brought her tiny dog in a designer bag. And me? I was the host, the bang, the fool. The waiter placed the bill in front of me quietly, a leather folder with a discreet gesture. I hadn't even asked, they all just knew. That's when Uncle Steve leaned back in his chair and dropped it. Derek doesn't mind paying, he's lonely and rich. The whole table froze. Rachel stifled a laugh. My mom glanced at me, unsure whether to defend me or not. My dad raised an eyebrow but said nothing. The silence was thick, sharp, humiliating. "Excuse me," I said. "I mean, what else are you going to do with your money, kid? No wife, no kids. You might as well treat the people who actually built families." A low burn rose in my chest. I looked around. Not one person said a word. Not Rachel, who calls me every month when she overdrafts her account. Not Mom, who still introduces me as her son who works too much to settle down. Not Dad, who hasn't hugged me since I was 12. I looked at the bill, $1,240. Of course it was. I smiled. "That's fair," I said, pushing my chair back. "Where are you going?" Mom asked. It was brushed away. "Be right back." I wasn't. I walked past the maitre d', past the valet, past the life I'd been tricked into thinking I needed to maintain. I got into my car, no music, no calls, just the voice in my head repeating it like a drum. Lonely and rich. I drove past the exit to my condo, past the city skyline and straight to the airport. No bag, no plan, just one truth ringing louder than anything they'd ever said. They weren't my family, they were my audience, and the show was over. Then I remembered something. Not a moment, but a pattern, a sickness I had let grow for years. It started the day I made my first million. I didn't always pay for everything. There was a time, not that long ago, when I was invisible to my own family. Not hated, not loved, just irrelevant. The kind of person you forget to include in group texts. The kind who finds out about family vacations after they happened from someone's Instagram story. That was me before the money. 3 years ago, I was just another face in the background, quiet, focused, a little awkward at family events. No kids, no wife, just a startup and too much caffeine. I remember one Thanksgiving, I drove 2 hours to be there, brought wine, pie, the whole deal. Nobody said hi when I walked in, nobody saved me a seat. I ate standing up in the kitchen while everyone else laughed at the big table, pretending I wasn't there. Rachel made a joke about how I always looked tired, like a ghost who codes. My uncle laughed. My dad chuckled. Even Mom said, "Aw, honey, she's just playing." I left early that night. Nobody noticed. Then the app sold for $38 million. Clean, fast, brutal. Suddenly everything changed. I didn't have to announce it. They found out anyway because money has a way of ringing every phone. The first call was from Mom. "Derek, baby, I'm so proud of you. We always knew you had it in you. We were just talking about you last night." That was a lie. I hadn't spoken to her in 7 months. Then came Rachel. "Hey, cousin, so listen. I've got this little idea. Jewelry, handmade, super niche. I just need some seed money, not much, maybe 5,000. I gave her 10. She posted a story the next day. "So blessed to have supportive family." No tag, no thanks. My dad called me 2 days later, said the mortgage was behind, just a rough patch. He used the words, "from one man to another," like we were suddenly equals now that I had more in my account than he ever had in his life. I wired him the money. That was the first month. After that, they stopped pretending. Rachel called weekly. "Quick thing, my car broke down. Rent is late. Uncle Steve wanted help with his tax situation." My mom cried over the phone because she couldn't afford to visit her sister in Florida. I heard her booking the ticket while she was still fake sobbing. And me? I played my part because deep down, I thought if I kept giving, they'd start loving. The first time I picked up the tab at Le Chateau, they clapped. I'm not kidding, they clapped, raised their glasses like I had saved them from a burning building. "To Derek, our very own tech genius," Uncle Steve toasted. My mom dabbed her eyes like I had cured cancer. I should have seen it then, but I didn't. Because part of me, the desperate, wounded part, wanted it to be real, wanted to believe that their warmth was finally directed at me, not at the money I now carried like a cursed crown. But it didn't stop at dinners. Oh no, suddenly I was hosting birthdays, anniversaries, surprise engagements, all funded by me. Rachel threw a tantrum when I didn't fly her to Napa for her birthday. "You're rich, Derek. What's a few $100 to you?" A few hundred, she burned through $12,000 in one weekend and didn't say thank you once. Last Christmas, I showed up with gifts for everyone. Designer bags, watches, a PlayStation for Rachel's boyfriend, the same guy who never even remembers my name. You know what I got in return? A World's Best Uncle mug and a pair of socks. I'm not even an uncle. That night, while they all drank and danced, I sat by the fire, alone, wondering how I became this. A man who bought his way into family photos. A man who paid for love in installments. A man who smiled through it all just to feel like he belonged. But last night, when Uncle Steve leaned back and said, "Derek doesn't mind paying. He's lonely and rich," and everyone laughed, that wasn't just a sentence. That was a verdict, and I finally saw it, crystal clear. They never saw me, only what I gave. And the truth? They liked me better invisible, as long as the card cleared. I came back for a reason, not because I missed them, not because I needed closure, but because they needed to see it, see the man they hollowed out, see the bank account they drained, standing on 2 feet and finally saying enough. They booked brunch at Le Chateau again. Of course they did. Old habits die rich. They thought I was still in Tokyo. They didn't know I'd been watching. Rachel posted a boomerang of champagne. Uncle Steve shared a smug family time photo. My mother tagged me in a picture where I didn't exist, just an empty chair with my name card. That was the moment I got in my card. When I entered the room, time stopped. The clink of glasses, the chatter, the fake smiles, all frozen. Mom stood up first, her voice syrupy. "Derek, you're back. We've been so worried." Worried I'd cut them off, maybe, not worried about me. I stared at her for 3 full seconds before replying, "Did you miss me or just my visa?" Gasps. My dad cleared his throat. "Son, this isn't the time," said, stepping closer. "It's the perfect time because for once you're all seated, and for once I have your full attention." I reached into my coat and placed a thick envelope on the table. Rachel grabbed it. "What is this, some legal thing?" "Receipt," I said. "For years' worth. Every dinner, every flight, a hotel gift, private driver spa treatment, cash transfer, rent payment, and emergency, meticulously organized, highlighted, tabbed." Uncle Steve snorted. "You've been tracking us?" "Not tracking," I said. I pointed straight at Rachel. "Napa weekend. You said it would be chill, affordable, low-key. Final cost, $12,437. You ghosted me for 3 weeks after." Her jaw clenched. I said thank you. "No, you posted thank you. You never said it to me." I turned to my father. "You needed help with the mortgage. I paid, then again and again. You said you were ashamed, but never enough to stop asking." He stood up. "You're embarrassing yourself." "No, Dad," I said. "I'm exposing you." "To Mom. You cried on the phone, said you were too broke to visit Aunt Linda. I wired the money while you sniffled. You posted pool photos from a 5-star hotel, tagged the dog, not me." I turned to the whole table now, my voice rising in my chest. "You called me family when you wanted money. You ignored me when I needed support. You invited me only when you needed the bill covered." They were frozen. For once, no fake smiles, no polite lies, just red faces and dropped jaws. Rachel tried to speak first. "So what? You're rich. You act like this was charity. You wanted to feel needed." "No," I said. "I wanted to feel loved. And when I realized I couldn't buy that from you, I paid anyway, hoping I was wrong." Uncle Steve slammed his glass down. "You're acting like a child." I laughed, once sharp, bitter. "No, I'm acting like a man who finally woke up. And now that I'm awake, I see you for what you are. Takers, users, a room full of well-dressed debts." I turned to the waiter in the corner. Poor guy looked like he wanted to disappear. "Split the bill evenly, 12 ways. He blinked. "Excuse me?" "You heard me. They can pay their share for once in their lives." My mother gasped. "You're making us pay here after all these years?" I leaned in slightly, my voice lower now. "Call it interest." Rachel stood up, her voice rising. "You'll regret this. You'll be alone, Derek. When you stop paying, nobody stays." Silence. Then I said the quiet part out loud. "And that's how I know who's real." I didn't storm out. That would have been dramatic. I walked, slowly, calmly, with dignity they would never understand. I left behind the table, the fake smiles, the debit, and for the first time in years, I left without paying. The first 3 days were quiet. No calls, no messages, not even a passive-aggressive "hope you're okay" post on social media. It was the kind of silence I hadn't felt in years. The kind that isn't emptiness but relief, like breathing air without poison in it. I slept better than I had in months. No vibrating phone at 2 a.m., no fake emergencies, no sudden Venmo request with a "love you" attached. I finally had time to think about who I'd been and who I might become, now that I had no one to perform for. But on day 4, the silence cracked. It wasn't a call, it wasn't a knock. It was a legal envelope delivered by courier, my name printed in bold, expensive ink. The kind of envelope that smells like entitlement and bad intentions. Inside, a lawsuit filed by my own family. Claim, emotional and financial abandonment. Amount demanded, $2,300,000, filed jointly by my parents, Rachel, and Uncle Steve. I had to read it 3 times before I believed it was real. They claimed my sudden and irresponsible withdrawal of support had caused psychological damage, lifestyle disruption, and material harm. Material harm, as in, they couldn't afford imported wine and Botox anymore. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was so delusional it almost felt genius. They weren't just greedy, they were strategic. If they couldn't guilt me back in, they'd drag me. That night, I poured myself a drink, sat on the balcony of my apartment, no skyline view, just trees and wind, and told myself 2 things. 1, they were never going to stop. 2, neither. Then came the next twist. 2 days after the lawsuit, I got a message. Not from a lawyer, not from the press, from Emily. Yeah, that Emily. The woman who left me 3 weeks before our wedding. No note, no goodbye, just silence and a closet that smelled like a ghost. Derek, I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear from, but I saw what your family is doing and I need to tell you something. Faced. I didn't respond. Not that night, not the next, but the 3rd day, I typed 1 word. When. We met at a coffee shop in Silver Lake. She wore a green coat, the same color she wore the last time I saw her, but now it looked different, stronger, like armor. She didn't smile, didn't cry. She just said, "It's my fault, all of it." I blinked. "What do you mean?" She sighed. "When I left, I didn't disappear out of cruelty. I left because your mother told me to." Silence. I went to see her. I was scared about the pressure, about being with someone as driven as you. She said things, made me doubt everything. I stared at her, frozen. She told me I wasn't good enough for you, that I'd ruin your focus, that if I really loved you, I'd step aside and let you grow. And you believed her, I said. She swallowed. I was 25. I had no one, and she was persuasive. She promised to keep it quiet if I just walked away. Suddenly, everything made sense. The calculated coldness, the vanishing act, the way my mother never mentioned her again. It wasn't a breakup. It was an erasure. "You told your mom I sold the app?" I said slowly. She nodded. "I was angry. I thought you moved on. I wanted to remind her I existed, and she used it to launch the feeding frenzy." I looked at her, hard. "Why tell me now? Because I was wrong, and I hate what they've done to you. You've deserved someone in your corner." That night, we stayed up, going through old messages. She helped me build a timeline, messages from family, patterns of manipulation, voice notes, photos. Then I sent them, all of them, to 2 people, my lawyer and my friend Owen, an investigative journalist. 5 days later, the article went live. The price of being generous, how one family sued their own son for cutting off their luxury allowance. It included screenshots of manipulative messages, proof of payments, audio of my mom guilting Emily, a full breakdown of how much each family member received, a video clip of Rachel saying, "He'll never cut us off, he needs us." It exploded. Within 72 hours, Rachel's sponsorships dropped. Uncle Steve was suspended from work pending an ethics review. My dad's golf club revoked his membership. My mom deactivated every account she had, and the lawsuit was dropped. No comment. But it wasn't over. One last letter came from my mother, handwritten, 2 pages, no apology, just blame. "You humiliated us. You're ungrateful. We did everything for you." I read it once. Then I burned it. Emily. She didn't leave this time. She didn't try to fix me, didn't ask for anything. She just stayed, sat with me in silence, helped me rebuild, not romance, not yet, but presence. And presence is rarer than love. Today I live in a small place. No more penthouse, no more private chef, no more calls asking for favors. Just books, music, quiet. I open my own mail, make my own coffee, choose who I let in, and every so often someone asks, "Do you ever miss them?" I smile. "No," I say, "because I never had them. I only had their expectations. Now I have something better, boundaries and peace that can't be bought." The world didn't change. I did. And that made all the difference. It's strange how stillness can be so full. The first few months after everything ended felt like standing in a room where the music just stopped. No chaos, no applause, just breath, just light. I started to notice things again. The way morning light filters through the curtain at 6:42, the sound of sparrows on the balcony, the quiet hum of a world that doesn't expect anything. For the first time in my life, I wasn't performing. Not for approval, not for validation, not for love. I had to purchase in installments. I was just being, and that in itself felt like a revolution. I joined a community garden, not because I suddenly cared about kale, but because I missed touching something real. There's something powerful about planting seeds in dirt with strangers who don't care who you were, how much you made, or whether your last name is attached to a scandal. Just hands in the soil, simple conversation. Growth that isn't measured in dollars. One woman there, Marta, 73, runs the compost pile like a military unit. She once looked at me and said, "You seem like a man who finally stopped running." I nearly cried because I had, and it took me 38 years to do it. I started journaling again. Not on a laptop with a pen in a worn leather notebook. Some days, I write just one sentence. Some days, 5 pages. But it helps, putting things down without having to explain them. No one reads it. No one edits it. And in a life where I used to narrate every move for someone else's approval, that feels like a gift. I also stopped lying, not just to others, to myself. I stopped pretending I was okay with things that hurt, stopped calling betrayal bad communication, stopped labeling exploitation as just how family works. Now, when something feels wrong, I name it. When someone crosses a line, I don't move the line. I walk away without guilt, without explanations, because no is a sentence, and I've earned the right to say it. There's a bookstore I go to now. Old wooden floors, smells like dust and paper and peace. The owner, Jules, never asks me what I do. He just says, "Back again, huh?" and offers a coffee on the house. Sometimes we talk about philosophy, sometimes about movies. Once, we sat for an hour discussing the difference between loneliness and solitude. His take, loneliness is being unseen, solitude is choosing yourself. That stuck with me, because I used to be surrounded by people and still feel invisible. Now, I sit alone with a book and feel whole. I've made 3 new friends this year. None of them asked what car I drive. None of them followed me for clout. One of them doesn't even use social media. We meet on Sundays, talk about music, life, sometimes just sit in silence. It's not loud, flashy connection. It's not a loyalty earned through spending. It's simple but real. And real is something I never knew I was missing until I had it. Emily. She lives a few blocks away now. We don't call it anything, no labels, no pressure. Some nights she brings tea. Some nights I bring over a book. We laugh more than we talk. We're not rebuilding what we had. We're building something better. Something honest. No performance, no fear, just presence. And the old me? He's still here somewhere, but quieter now. He doesn't scream for approval. He doesn't beg to be seen. He's resting, healing. And every time I pass a mirror, I nod at him. Not to erase him, but to thank him. He survived what I didn't know I needed to escape. Sometimes, I get messages from people I used to know. Not family, but orbiters. People who fed off my generosity and called it friendship. They say things like, "Miss you, man. Hope you're doing okay. Let's catch up sometime." I don't answer, not out of spite, but because I don't need to fill every silence anymore. Last week I saw a young guy at the community garden. He looked tired, overdressed for dirt, kept checking his phone like someone might yank his chain. I walked over, handed him a trowel, said, "Start with basil. It grows fast. You'll feel like you're doing something right." He blinked, nodded, didn't ask my name, didn't care. Good. The truth is, the world hasn't changed much. People still take. Families still manipulate. There's still noise, hunger, and the temptation to buy your way into love. But I've changed. I don't negotiate with guilt anymore. I don't perform grief to make others comfortable. I just live. And some days, that's still hard. But most days, it's free. So if you ask me now, do you regret walking out of that dinner? My answer is simple, no. I regret waiting so long.